am hitting record now.
I'm recording.
I am a very sad boy. Everything is
sad
terrible.
Sad boys unite.
Sad boys unite.
You know, this Linkin Park album was perfect for this week.
That's it's a little on the nose. We're not sad and angry boys. We're just sad.
All right.
I think we already have our cold open. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Pack Your Run podcast. This is episode 24?
25, I think.
23? 25. Wow.
I'm bad at numbers.
Well, anyways, I am your host, Dan Mayotte.
And I am your resident sad boy, AJ Lagambina.
Two sad boys on one podcast. How sad could it be?
I'm wearing a Citizen shirt for emo cred. I've got a cardigan on for warmth and to also show you that I'm a thinking boy. I'm the definition of a sad indie boy today.
I'm wearing a Citizen shirt too.
We did not plan
that. We didn't plan this. We've had many instances where we have matched without even recognizing or like realizing it. The first day of college, we were both wearing the same shirt that we both got from the concert we were both at the night before.
Sometimes it's a little scary how much on the same page the two of us are. It's we're a little bit too in simpatico.
Yes. Well, anyways, let's get right into it. We got a lot of things to cover. Dodger baseball. We talking Dodger baseball with Mookie Betts winning it. Congrats to the LA Dodgers. We're talking Patriots and our disappointment. And also, we are covering the 20th anniversary of Hybrid Theory. And we're answering the age-old question, does it still hold up?
20 years later. It's crazy that was
20 years later.
I think that was one of the first CDs that I ever actively asked for in being in the Walmart CD section or whatever. It's crazy to think that this album came out 20 years ago. I still feel like this band is weirdly relevant.
For me, it's a weird... Linkin Park is one of those weird bands for me that I never got into as a young child. I got into Hybrid Theory towards the beginning of high school, but that was about it. But we'll talk and discuss more about that later. First up, what are we drinking this afternoon?
I'm a sad boy. I'm a sad fall boy.
With your day off.
With my day off. There's just nothing to do besides cleaning my house and recording this podcast. So I've cracked open this adorable tiny little can of Kim Crawford Sauvignon Blanc, which I've talked about before on the podcast. But
canned wine.
A tiny can of wine, because that's where my life has resulted. Everything is in flux. Everything is everything in the age of COVID. So a small can of wine to go along with my podcast. You don't have to respond to that. It's just let's just acknowledge the reality of this is what it is now.
True. I mean, tiny feelings with a tiny can.
Tiny feelings with a tiny can of wine.
I am currently drinking water, H2O, straight from the tap of Boston. Fantastic.
I think we've consistently traded off on who's drinking alcohol with the past 5 or 6 episodes.
That is true. Although I will give an alcoholic recommendation that I had over the weekend, or at least it's a liquor store, wine shop, I guess.
Okay.
It's called Vino Vito. It's in Brookline, and It's expensive, and they have a lot of high-end stuff if you are into like high-end wine. Like the cheapest bottle of wine is like $14. But they have really good customer service that I was very impressed by. When I got up to the counter to pay for my wine, they were like, "Oh, do you have a account with us?" And I was like, "Nope." And they signed me right up, very quick and easy, and I got $5 off my bottle. And they also gave me the birthday discount, even though my birthday was like 3 weeks ago.
Damn.
So that was tight. And I'm gonna, if you're ever in Brookline, go check them out.
Do the thing.
Yeah, I would highly recommend.
Oh yeah.
But anyways,
jump into it. The Dodgers are World Series champions.
Which honestly, first up, congratulations. I mean, they've been one of the best teams in baseball for the past like 5 years. So congrats to them. They deserve it. I've mentioned it several times on the show, and I'm gonna continually mention it time and time again. I'm still mad at the fact that the Red Sox traded away Mookie Betts.
He was a huge factor in this, and I didn't get to watch every game, but I did catch bits and pieces of almost every game of the series. And man, yeah, what a just colossal fuck up on the side of the Red Sox management, letting him go.
And I mean, I'll say this: it's better that they got something in return for him than just letting him walk in free agency. Like, I think that move is smart, but
it still bites. It
still hurts.
And I've heard it time and time again from so many people that so Mookie's originally from Tennessee, I believe. I've met a couple of people that have had a lot of real great experiences with him. I've had a couple of passings with him in Nashville. He seems like a great dude to begin with, but also just an unreal baseball player. And one of the few reasons why I'm not a massive baseball fan. I am admittedly a fair weather fan. When the Red Sox are doing well, when my team is doing well, and when they're kind of in the runnings, I'll take the time to go and watch some games, and especially in the postseason, I'll go for it and I'll go all in. But we've talked before on the podcast, a regular baseball season is just too freaking long. There's too many games. I got better things to do with my time than to be that invested in it. But even for a guy like me, it still stings to watch Mookie playing for the Dodgers. And it took a lot. It took a lot for me to not wear my Sully's brand Beat LA navy blue and red t-shirt. Because I agree with a lot of the national media about the Tampa Bay Rays. Baseball is about streaks, and it's about feel much more than the technicalities of lineup changes in hockey, or the offensive side and the defensive side of the ball in football. There's a lot of statistics there, and there are a lot of things that matter from game to game. Baseball seems to be so much more about feel, and the Tampa Bay Rays play baseball in such a mathematical, statistic based way that is, again, as somebody who doesn't watch it that much and I'm not all that invested, knowing that in the back of my head, watching some of these games and watching the way that the Rays would play some of these games, it was infuriating.
Right. And I mean, did the Rays beat the Yankees, or did someone else beat the Yankees? I forget.
I think it might have been the Rays.
Well, for that, I mean, the Rays are in our division, but I'd rather root for the Rays than the Yankees. And I think every Boston fan would agree with that sentiment.
I agree, but also, man, the city of Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay is feeling very similar to the way that I feel about the Tennessee Titans, where it's cool, you're doing really well because you have half of your staff and half of your players on the backs of Boston teams that did the actual hard work of making those players and those coaches who they are.
Well, who from Boston is in Tampa Bay?
So as a culture, them getting Tom Brady,
okay.
The Tampa Bay Lightning, really kind of putting, they really kind of put the screws to the Boston Bruins and everything else. There is a narrative.
Oh yeah, they won the cup, didn't they?
And
I forgot.
So there's a narrative forming of between player trades and everything else but also just the actual culture of those cities. Like, I'm sick of Tampa Bay getting the win over Boston. I'm starting to develop a little bit of a complex about Tampa Bay when it comes to sports.
Right. I mean,
although I'm Tampa less Bay concerned about the Buccaneers now, and we'll transition to football in a minute, but I will say right now, I'm less concerned about Tampa Bay Buccaneers now that they've signed the shit show that is Antonio Brown.
I mean, Antonio Brown is still a good player. Problem or no problem. I mean, it's going to be a little bit to reel him in, but like, congrats to Mookie. I'm happy for him. He is probably my favorite current baseball player.
He's unreal.
I mean, I saw him... like seeing him play in Lowell with the Lowell Spinners and then like him eventually being a Red Sox, like that's cool to me. That's one of the few life moments I'll never forget. And like people yelling out "Moo!" like
Mookie and Kevin Youkilis, the two times that I've been watching games, like home games at Fenway, where I've been like, why are people booing our own team? Like, no, they're not booing. They're going, Mookie or Yuke. Yep. Like, oh, man.
Yeah.
I wish him all the best. I'm sad to
I think every Boston fan was, like, rooting for him and was like, yeah, I want to see Mookie win another World Series ring.
Yeah, I feel he did a lot for the Red Sox, and they just kind of, like, they pissed that away, and that's on the Red Sox management and stuff. But they, I've got no ill will towards that guy. He did really well, and I'd rather see him do well going forward than, clearly he wasn't valued the way that he needed to be in Boston, or they would have kept him. So let him go. Let him go make those checks. Fuck it.
Exactly. At least he didn't do a Johnny Damon.
Yeah, at least. Oh God, that would have been. That would have been the thing.
We're not going to get into that.
And that would have been the thing that would have made this conversation that we're having much different. If he had turned around and signed with the Yankees, it would have been like, well, there goes another one. Okay. Fuck it.
So, disappointing Patriots. Not just one game, but two games. We were off last week. We kind of...
2 games.
It slipped our mind. We're two busy guys. Sometimes we forget things. I thought the Broncos game was one of the worst Patriots games I ever watched. And then the funny thing you want to know the funny thing about that Broncos game, the Patriots and Broncos, the Broncos kept trying to give it to the Patriots. They were like, they never shut the door until the very last couple minutes. They were like, yeah, you could come back in the game. Like, sure, why not?
And then along came Jimmy G.
And then this San Francisco 49ers game, that was the worst game we ever seen from the Patriots.
I believe it is statistically the worst game. It's the worst home game that we've ever seen in the Bill Belichick era. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, there was the only other game I can think of that was that terrible for us was like against the Kansas City Chiefs like a couple years ago when they beat the snot out of us like 40-something to 10. Like that was a bad game, but this one was...
And I think I'm of two minds about this one with, being a couple of days removed and everything. I was big mad watching this game. Like this was supposed to be winnable. This was supposed to be this was supposed to be the comeback. We finally had time to practice. It was easy to make excuses after the Broncos game. We didn't have time to practice. Fundamentals were off on both sides of the ball. There was a lot that was going on, and it was trying to get back into the swing of things. This week was just pitiful. And like I said, it has me of two minds where it's like, well, if I were in Patriots cleats going into this past game, my anxiety would be through the fucking roof. Like, of course, you had a pretty bad loss. We've had a lot of talks about the fundamentals being wrong, and we're trying to make up with that and everything else. And I can see how you get in your own head. And physically watching back some of the highlights from that game and stuff, you can see, especially with Cam, there were a lot of moments where it was like, yeah, this guy's in his own head. He's overthinking every fucking play. But the flip side of it is also like, we are not the team that we thought we were after the first 2 weeks of this season. And I am firmly in the camp of like, we got to make some changes and we got to make them now. We're only one win away from being a viable, wild card contender, and we can fix this from where we are. It's early enough that we can fix it, but man, that's an uphill fucking battle.
I would agree. And the differences between, and I thought about this after the game, and I didn't realize it, but Darnell Selekia, the offensive line coach.
Dante Scarnecchia?
He's the one that is, I think that's how you pronounce his name, right?
Yeah.
Scarnecchia. Yes. Anyways, he has been the coach for all those great O-lines for the Patriots teams. He retired this offseason. Cam looks lost behind that offensive line. He doesn't have a lot of time to throw back there, and also the wide receivers aren't getting open as well. And
let me take this. Let me take that moment just on that one thought that you had to say.
Yeah.
I'm still not here for Julian Edelman hate. This is a guy that has been playing this entire season with a bum knee and every other injury that they never seem to report with Edelman. Like,
absolutely,
we need offensive weapons. I think that's undeniable now. We do not have depth. We do not have the ability to make offensive plays with the team that we have right now. There needs to be changes there if we're going to try to make a push this season. But also, we're dealing with a guy that's been hurt for 2 years now, and I don't suffer under the delusion that Julian Edelman listens to this podcast. Although if he does, please sponsor us. I love JE11. Fucking take 2 weeks off and get healthy. You're one of the best players in the league and one of the most underrated players in the league. He's a playmaker. Get healthy and do your job.
I think in the league is a stretch. But like, I think he's one of the best players on the Patriots, regardless. The thing is, like, this is a run-first team, and when you get behind early in a game, it's hard to go back to that running game. You have to start throwing it, and Cam's offensive line can't protect him, or like can't. There were a couple times in that game on Sunday where I was like, you need to throw it away. Live to see another down, Cam. Like,
and that's the point that I was making earlier. Is like, not only does Cam need to figure out how to throw it away, and he needs to figure out how to just live to see another down. There are points where he has time with even just with his footwork the way that it is, when he breaks the pocket and he moves around and stuff. He has time. Yeah. You can physically see him from the television broadcasts. You can see him struggling to figure out what to do. And you can watch him just be in his head and trying to figure out, well, what's the right thing? And he's making like feints towards, I'm going to throw it here, I'm going to make the run, and I'm going to try and get myself a first down and things like that. Things that we were seeing earlier in this season where he's pulling his punches now. Like, you have to do what comes naturally.
And maybe like there are problems in the coaching where they're like, Cam, you know what? You need to stop running. You cannot run after, like, when no one's like open. You've been hurt too many times. You got to throw it. And yeah, that's right. That's true. But like, what if we're not moving the ball down the field? What's the point then?
Yeah, and you're making my point a little bit there. Like, you have to do what comes naturally. You can see there were glimpses every down of this past game. You could see that Cam knew where he needed to go. You could see that he was trying to make his play, and then he ended up pulling his punches. And there was another time, the second time this season, where he's gone to go scramble and trying to figure out what he's going to do, and he fell on his own ass because he was so just in his head. And like, if you're going to throw the ball, I mean, I know that interceptions are a big thing and everybody's talking about that, and everybody's talking about the issue that the Patriots have and that everybody has with interceptions this year, apparently. But I'd rather watch you just commit to, you see the opening, just go for it.
Yeah.
And now we're in a position today, especially, we're recording here on Wednesday afternoon. There's talks about Stephon Gilmore there's talks about him getting the trade deadline boot.
I mean, there's been talks about him getting traded since March. But I mean, like, you see, the thing is with these last 2 weeks, particularly, I have, especially after this week, like, I have been running it through my head, like, is it time for the Patriots just to blow it up and go into a full-blown rebuild? And I don't know if I'm ready quite yet for that. I want to see another maybe like couple weeks.
Yeah,
maybe 2 weeks or something like that.
Let's pursue that. Is it time? Is it time for the Patriots to just tank this season and go, well, we'll get back to things next year?
I don't think they're going to tank, though. I don't think tanking is the right issue. I think maybe like reloading is probably the better statement there.
Well, how do we?
Because like Bill Belichick is a competitor. He doesn't coach to lose.
Yeah, and I like to think that way too. It's just hard. So even last year, the last year with Brady, it was the last time where we were in very similar positions to where we are right now, where we were sitting back and, well, in Bill we trust and everything else, which I still stand by.
Right.
But like, we're not that far from being viable competitors at this point in the season. So how do we fix this?
Right.
Or is the answer just take the year, do what we can to acquire draft picks and everything else, and reload and make another run at it next season? What's the answer here, Dan?
I mean, I think what's even worse about how the Patriots are is just how successful like Tom Brady is right now. I mean, I think that's like the hard to swallow pill. Like, oh, like Tom Brady, he's washed. He doesn't have anything left in the tank, and like he's been very good with Tampa so far. So I think that part of it hurts. It's kind of like seeing your ex doing like so much better than what you are doing.
Kind of. I hesitate to subscribe to that method of thinking just because we have, in the NFL, especially the past couple of seasons, we've seen so many clubs that have gone that route. Cleveland Browns are a perfect example. I think to a certain extent, the Packers, and now we're watching it with the Buccaneers, like these teams that give the quarterback or their star player everything and just they just keep giving and giving and giving and giving, tend to kind of fall on their faces. Like, let's take the Browns, for instance. Like, they've been all in on Baker since he was drafted. It's all been about Baker Mayfield. And we're going to change everything to make everything good for Baker. We're going to change the coaching staff. We're going to get you more weapons. We're going to do everything. And the Browns are still not great.
Well, in Baker's defense, and I know that we're veering off a little bit off topic here. We'll go right back to whether we think the Patriots should just blow it up and rebuild or just continue to try to fight and maybe get another piece this season. But in Baker's defense, he has had 3 head coaches in 3 years. And it's like having 3 different bosses in 3 years.
Well, yeah, but those 3 different...
How can a job succeed? How can your job succeed if you have like 3 different bosses in like 3 years or like 3 months?
But those 3 different coaches have been in the service of Baker Mayfield's our guy. At least as far as the national sports media is concerned. Because I don't claim to know anything besides that when it comes to Cleveland. But like the goal there seems to have been, well, we're going to, this coach isn't working with our guy and he's our guy, so we're going to keep trying to turn this over and everything else. And it's not going that great. And that's kind of my concern with Brady here, is that like Tampa Bay is just going to break all the rules. And Tom's going to dictate what's going on here, and we're going to sign Gronk, even though, statistically, even with his couple of touchdowns and his kind of attitude and everything else, like Gronk is still not, I'm not ready to call him a contributing factor really to the Tampa Bay offense. I'm not, Bruce Arians kind of selling his soul to be like, yeah, we're going to get Antonio Brown, who I have been very public in the media saying that's not my guy, Right. How much of your soul do you have to sell before that just comes back to bite you. Like,
that's fair. And I mean, we'll see how Tampa Bay does. I mean, they're in a better position now than us. But should we, if you were the GM of the Patriots, if you were Bill Belichick, would you go forward and try to sell off high on some pieces, or would you try to still go for like competing in the playoffs this year? Maybe trying to add like a AJ Green or a John Ross or one of those other pieces.
If I were the GM of the Patriots, and I'll go into the hot take chamber for this particular take.
Okay.
You buy low and sell high. That's kind of that's the general economic theory of most of the United States, right?
Yeah, and that's kind of the theory of Bill Belichick and
exactly.
In the end. I mean,
I would have, if I were the GM of the Patriots, I know it would have cost us the 28-3 win in the Super Bowl, which I love. I love that game. I love the lore behind that. And I admit that would not have happened if things went the way that I would have done things if I were the GM. I would have got rid of Brady before that. I would have really kind of coached up Jimmy G and gotten some draft capital and really kind of just continued the legacy. So first of all, I would have gotten rid of Brady before now. I think Jimmy Garoppolo would have been our guy, and we would have been seeing a lot of the same kind of Patriots success that New England fans love and the rest of the country just wants to blow their brains out after. And in this particular situation, I'm not convinced that Cam Newton's not our guy. Here today in 2020, I'm torn, and I alluded to it earlier, with the Stephon Gilmore trade rumors and everything else, and he just put his house on the market, which is a pretty good kind of indicator. I'd like to see Cam here for more than just a year, especially in the year of COVID and all the things that are coming with that. I'd kind of like to see 2 or 3 years of Cam Newton and the Patriots really trying to restructure, not rebuild, not blowing it up, not everything else. I think when we signed Cam, the fact that Belichick felt comfortable enough going with a veteran quarterback, a former MVP, and everything else, I think one of the issues that we're seeing now is the fact that in very typical Patriots fashion, and I still, like I said, I subscribe into the in Bill we trust kind of thing. I don't think we went all in on Cam when we signed him. I think kind of smartly, kind of unwisely, we went and signed a veteran quarterback, and we signed this superstar, this former MVP, to be the new quarterback of the Patriots organization. And we didn't do much to surround him with pieces that would help him succeed. And now we're seeing kind of the byproduct, and that's exacerbated by the COVID side of things and not being able to practice for a while and a couple of tough losses and a couple of moral victories and everything else. We're really seeing, like I was saying, you can see on the game film, Cam was pulling his punches himself. But the Patriots organization has been pulling its punches since we signed Cam. It was just like, well, this is our win. We got our new quarterback. We got our number one. We got our starter. And what have we done since we did that? Nothing. We still don't have the depth at wide receiver. Our secondary is still one of the best in the league, but that only gets you so far as your offense is going. And if our offense isn't clicking, it doesn't matter how many times you could smother people and make really great plays on defense.
Yeah.
Opposing offenses are going to continue to make those plays.
Wasn't the issue. Our defense wasn't the issue on Sunday. Yeah, we gave up a lot of points, but they were also on the field 80% of the time. I don't know the breakdown of the time of possession, but you can't live it was 3 and outs the whole time.
And we've got a much tougher. It's the same exact position we were in last year. It's the same position we were in at the last year of the Brady era in New England. We have a great defense. We have a defense that can go up against the best of them. We've seen that. We had on the offensive side of the ball against Kansas City, we had nobody. We could not make a play, but our defense smothered Kansas City in a way that we haven't seen Kansas City smothered in basically the past year and a half. We did a really good job on the defensive side of the ball. That's great. But without any kind of offensive weapons, without any kind of ability to make moves and to be competitive on that side of the ball, That's why like I said, last year we were in a very similar position. We were winning games. We were 6-0, and it was all on the backs of our defense, and it was because we had an easier schedule. And this year, we don't have Tom Brady. We don't have and
we have a tough schedule.
Yeah, we don't have Tom Brady. We don't have the offensive weapons that we needed to at least try to get in this offseason. And I still believe in Cam. I still think he's a great quarterback, but we haven't surrounded him with anybody besides, like, the possible exception of Julian Edelman, but he's not healthy, so he's basically a non-factor and actually a little bit of a detractor lately.
Yeah.
The offensive side of the ball, we're still just consistently fucking up, and we still have a fantastic defense, but defense doesn't win you championships, and it doesn't win you NFL football games.
Well, it does, but like you also have to have an offense that is sort of competent.
Yeah.
In order to compete.
And you can't just sit there and watch. You can't sit there and watch your quarterback hesitate. And the other side of that coin, and one of the things that I feel like I've been beating my head against the wall every time I watch the Patriots is, I do kind of understand the thinking from the coaching staff to be like, well, we're losing in the third quarter, we're going to throw in Jarrett Stidham. That's not a good barometer of what Jarrett Stidham is as a quarterback. You can't throw him to the wolves when things are going wrong and expect some sort of turnaround. It's just not how reality works. And it's the same thing that I had in the playoffs with the Bruins when they went from, I forget his name. We went from Rask to Halak to the third string goalie that we threw in a couple of times during the playoff run here. And we just threw this third stringer to the wolves. That's not going to get you success. That's not going to win you games. And I don't think that they were throwing him in there to win games. But that's not great experience. That's a really great way to demoralize a player.
Jared, like, the times that he's come into the games this season, I mean, not good. Originally, I was like, this season, I was like, I want an edge rusher. I want someone to get after the quarterback. And while I think that is more of a want item at this point, I think I changed my opinion now. I want like a wide receiver or a tight end. I mean, our tight ends have not done anything this season.
And I'm not sure that our conversations on the podcast have really kind of made this explicit. I was trying to toe the line, and I was always a little bit more in the offensive camp than the defensive camp that you were going back. But I am officially at that point where it's just like, no, our defense is fine, and our defense is varied, and we have depth there.
It's competent. Like our linebackers are not as good as I would like them to be. Like Dante Hightower is definitely a big miss there, but like
Patrick Chung too.
We have Patrick Chung in the secondary. That's a big loss there. But I mean, there's a couple names that are floating around there. There's John Ross from the Cincinnati Bengals. There's also AJ Green that's also available.
What's his name? There's Marvin, I think, from the Lions.
Marvin Jones. There's Marvin Jones. David Njoku from the Browns, who he's the second stringer, and he's a pretty good tight end. He's the second string behind Austin Hooper. Trying to think. There's Kyle Randolph up with the Vikings. I don't want them to give up anything big. A second rounder for Mohamed Sanu last year was
big.
Admittedly a bad move. I thought that was way too high at the time, and even looking back on it now, it's even worse. Not that the Falcons did anything with that pick, because the Falcons are just horrible.
Horrendous.
Yeah. But I want to see another weapon for him. I think running backs, fine. We have plenty of depth but either a tight end, maybe another guard. I know that we've had some injuries. They have switched around their whole offensive line this whole season. So I think maybe some depth with that. A lot of young guys with the offensive line. But we need something on offense.
And we need a star. we need somebody that opposing teams are like, we've got to double cover this guy. We have to, and that's a tough proposition to bring somebody in from another club and everything. I get that. But we need somebody, right. And that's part of my argument for Julian Edelman is that Jules was always flourishing when he had Gronk or when he had Danny Amendola. When he had somebody who was a real star that was going for the depth and was going down the field and everything else, and then you could make those short plays, you could make those really kind of finesse plays that Julian Edelman thrives on, because the team was more concerned about, well, what the hell happens if we let Gronk get down the field? What happens when we let somebody else get down the field? And then Julian Edelman can just come in and be he always had some sort of cover when he was at his best. And for the past 2 years, he got elevated to number one, which is cool because he's always been just a workhorse for this team, but without anybody else around him, without anybody else that opposing teams are concerned about. We're watching throws to Julian Edelman become picks and pick sixes. And you gotta have more depth there. And if you don't have depth there, everything else falls apart. Right.
All right. I think we have exasperated everything Patriots related, unless you have another point to make.
Nope, I think Cam's still our guy. I think we just gotta give him a couple more chances, and we gotta give him a couple of weapons, and we gotta figure this out if we think that this season is going to be worth a damn.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that.
And I'd like to see them try and make some sort of deal, and I'd like to this season. I'm not willing to give up on this season, but I'd like to see something go forward. I think we got to figure out a deal with him too, and just let's give it another year or two. Let's figure this out.
Yeah, and I'm hopefully we're good against Buffalo this week.
That's the hope.
That's going to be a tough game. But anyways, transition to Hybrid Theory, the debut album by Linkin Park.
Huge album.
Huge album. This is the 20th anniversary of it. It came out this month. Like to give a little background, AJ?
Yeah, so this is one of, personally for me, this is one of the big kind of alternative and like really creative albums that I ever paid attention to, besides like classic rock, some of the bubblegum pop from the 60s and 70s that my dad introduced me to and stuff like that. This was the gateway to alternative music, heavy music, punk music, like everything that I ended up getting into and stuff like that. There's just so many different genres that are getting blended here. There's so many different just influences that are apparent throughout the entire it's a 12-track album that is just, it's so varied. It's so, all of these different genres and things convalesce. Like I would say that I'm probably not alone in saying that this was the album that brought me into the greater music scene and started kind of a journey towards mix engineering and things like that and everything else. This was, not only was it their big debut, which is crazy to think that an album that's this varied was the major label and really the general kind of debut for a band. Like this is, well, I think that's as good a place as any to start. Like this is a huge album.
I mean, it is the best-selling debut album since Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction.
Yep.
And it's also the best-selling rock album of the 21st century and the best-selling debut album in the 21st century, too. It won Best Hard Rock Performance for Crawling. Huge song for that album. Some fun facts about Hybrid Theory. Hybrid Theory was actually the original name for the band, but then there was this...
I have the demos from when the band was originally called Hybrid Theory.
Yep, but they were forced to change their name because there was a company that already had the trademark for that, so they just named that their album instead. This was set to be the demo tape. Like, a lot of the songs on this were from the demo tape. They played 45 showcases to different record labels to try to get them signed. that's a pretty cool story in itself. Like, I mean, that doesn't really happen nowadays. Usually it's you go through the tedious of, well, if any, we don't know how to get signed to major labels, but
but this was
if we knew how to do that, we would
this was, I would argue that this album was the last of the major label boom that you saw between probably the mid 60s through the 2000s with the advent of downloading. This was the last album that made it, in giant quotation marks, made it, because of the system that was intact before the internet really kind of turned around and just in positive ways democratized everything, and on the negative side just made it more about, you know, the actual finances of major label albums.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if we think of the time in 2000, and just to give you a background on the music landscape, especially rock and metal, I mean, the primary rock bands at that time were nu metal bands.
Yeah.
Limp Bizkit was huge. You had Korn, huge band. You had Slipknot. You had System of a Down. All these huge nu metal bands that, now looking back on it, we sit there and like kind of laugh at it. Like, wow, I can't believe like people were listening to it. But like these guys sold millions of records. Fred Durst was a pop star at one point. Didn't he dated like Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera. A little frustrated getting my words out. I had to do a Chester Bennington scream there.
There it is.
But at one point, the major label is trying to get rid of Mike, like the guy who raps in Linkin Park, and wanted to get some rapper from New York to replace him. Also, the Shut Up in One Step Closer, that was a ripoff of Rage Against the Machine, which no surprise there with the shut up, I am talking to you. Like that kind of like back and forth.
Rage has an absolute influence on everything that this band did in this album and the subsequent album, Meteora. You can hear, like Rage Against the Machine absolutely paved the way for this band.
This album debuted at number 16 on Billboard, selling at 50,000 copies in its first week, and was certified gold 5 weeks after its release. And at this point, it's like pretty much like a diamond record. Some of the best, noticeable influences are Depeche Mode, Stone Temple Pilots, and some of the other members were also influenced by Guns N' Roses, U2, and the Smiths, surprisingly, which that's kind of like a broad range of influences there, but you can definitely hear them.
Yeah, and obviously, although that's not listed on what you're saying, you know, bands like Limp Bizkit, Korn, Rage Against the Machine, Metallica, you know, that aggressive music that is designed for more kind of radio-ready audiences, that's all there too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can hear, especially like when we were growing up and we were in our like teenage years, we grew up with like that kind of like metalcore sound and that metalcore scene. Maybe not playing that music, but we definitely remember listening to it at a time. And you can hear the influence of Linkin Park in a lot of those bands. And like I was like listening to this record, I was like, oh yeah, there's like A Mice of Men, there's like Attack, there's like all these other metalcore. Yeah, Day to Remember. You can hear it everywhere in like those type of bands. This was a very influential record for all the bands that we grew up listening to, including this. I mean,
so I think an interesting point to start this before we get into our usual kind of track by track and, you know, dissecting it and everything else is like, do you remember when this album and this band kind of first came into your life?
I remember I was at camp and some kid was like really into rock music and he was like, yeah, I really like Linkin Park. And like, admittedly, I was like one of those snooty, like classic rock kids. I was like, I don't like, for the first alternative band that got me into alternative music, I would say was like Nirvana, not Linkin Park. Just to give that kind of background.
Yeah.
I remember listening to this band and I was like, I think the first song I heard was Let It Bleed, which looking back on that song's a banger. I love that song. I like that song now, but back in like when I was 13 or 12 or something like that, I was like, no, I don't like this. This is not good.
Wait, you mean the Linkin Park song, Bleed It Out?
Yeah.
Oh, so you were late to the game, Dan.
I was always late to the game. Somebody then was like, you really got to listen to this record. Like I heard them when I was 12 and I was like, Bleed It Out. No, don't like this. And then when I was 14, somebody was like, they're like, you got to listen to Hybrid Theory. And I was like, okay, fine. And I listened to it and I was like, this is actually decent. Like, this isn't bad. It's never been like, and I went into this week with this album, like with an open mind. Cause like, I've never been the biggest Linkin Park fan. I never got into them as much as like other kids did. I was just like, yeah, they're there.
So I got into Linkin Park, for a guy that's about to turn 25, more or less. I got into them on the ground level. I got into them right after Meteora came out. So I knew Numb and I knew a lot of the hits, but it was one of those things where, and I think anybody that's ever been into alternative music and things like that, and we touched on this a little bit on our last episode talking about the Machine Gun Kelly album, like the hope is that an album like that gets somebody to be like, oh shit, like this is really cool. What other artists are like this? And I want to dive deeper. This was that band for me, was listening to In the End, listening to Paper Cut, listening to songs off of this album where it was like, I've never heard. I mean, I think you can pretty objectively say like it's pop music.
Yeah.
But it has this edge and it has all of these different influences that are coming in that you wouldn't necessarily hear in just major label pop music and things like that. It really kind of opened up the door to me to like screaming. Like this guy is basically just making like inhuman noises with his voices, and that's a thing. And it really kind of, especially for me at the time, just being like a little sad boy, 8-year-old or whatever.
You're still a little sad boy.
We've gone over it already, Dan. God damn it. But like this music that touches on emotions that you don't necessarily hear from a lot of other bands and things like that, like through the sound itself, through the sound of like Chester Bennington screaming, or the really aggressive, compressed, distorted, massive guitars and things like that, like it really kind of opened up this door to a world of music that I thought like, when I heard metal, I thought of Black Sabbath before I was introduced to this album. It was like, oh yeah, big crushing guitars and these riffs and everything else. But that kind of music was filtered through that Black Sabbath lens of, oh, they're kind of similar to the way that some people might view a lot of, I don't even know what genres to throw out to make me sound like I know what I'm talking about. Deathcore and metal, harsh noise and things like that. You think you're always kind of filtering it through the bands that you know. So the guitars that I was hearing on Hybrid Theory immediately had me thinking of just like Black Sabbath riffs. And those guys, for better or for worse, I'm not making a judgment call on one of the godfathers of metal, but I hear Linkin Park compressed, massive, huge guitars and think, oh yeah, Black Sabbath, it's all about the riffs.
Yeah.
And I hear
this is like totally different.
Yeah, and even later in my life, as I started exploring more hip-hop and things like that, I hear the rapping from Linkin Park and from Mike Shinoda, the rapper from Linkin Park, his side project Fort Minor. I hear a lot of that, and immediately it's like, oh yeah, New York, Brooklyn, Queens style boom bap riffs. Like it's all about the beat. Yeah. It's one of the last I would argue, one of the last albums that really bridges gaps and is really influential in it doesn't do any of those sounds to a degree that brings it pedigree, I guess. It doesn't do any of those sounds to a point that is, right, the high watermark of that genre, but it blends so many of those sounds together in a way that makes you like, somebody that listens to Hybrid 3 wants to go, man, the rapping on this album is insane. I really identify. I love the beats. I love the way that this works. I want to explore that. I really love the guitars. I want to explore that. I love the screaming and the emotional intensity of it. I want to explore that. This
is the most accessible nu metal record of all time. Yeah, like Limp Bizkit and all those bands were. There's a lot of things in this album that aren't groundbreaking.
Yeah.
At all. Like, it's a lot like their contemporaries. But what Linkin Park does instead of like Limp Bizkit or Korn or any of those other like kind of nu metal bands is it's a more approachable. It's a way more approachable.
I think approachable is the word.
Rock. It's way more rock friendly. Like, and I would venture to say, and I don't even think it's that much of a hot take. I think like you hear songs like In the End and Crawling, that's going to be on classic rock in another like 5 years.
I don't think
that's crazy.
In some places it already is. It's that
I would say so. Yeah.
I think accessibility is really the right word for it. Is that I think the key to this band, especially over the course of their first 2 albums, is that ability to they took these kind of disparate sounds. You have your boom bap, rap, hip hop, especially at the time, that almost, I'll go as far as saying with giant air quotes, gangster rap kind of sound,
like a
with
poppier nu metal.
Yeah, and they've got that. They've got those big metal guitars. They've got the aggressive kind of vocals coming from Chester and things like that. Like, they really did a good job of distilling, okay, what works from the rap scene of the late 90s, early 2000s, what works from the thrash and the big anthemic metal scene in the late 90s, early 2000s, what works from the pop scene, from the hook standpoint.
Yeah.
They really kind of took those 3 elements and made an album. And, there's been a lot of kind of critical analysis of this album, especially in the wake of the 20th anniversary. And even before that, there was a lot of that where it was just like, well, it's a jack of all trades album. It does everything, but it doesn't do any of it quite well. But that's kind of the point of the album, is that this is the thing that I think got a lot of people into music that they would not have otherwise listened to.
And I think like it's kind of what kids want to listen to. I mean, this is what the music, you got to know this for anyone at home that's listening and doesn't know a lot about the music industry or knows something about the music industry. It's all driven by kids and teenagers. If teenagers want to listen to something and they relate to that, people are going to buy it. I mean, kids relate to this. People relate to the lyrics that Chester is screaming out and the pain that he's feeling. And that's why this album is the way it is. And that's why it's so successful.
And I think and we won't get into, I don't think we need to get into the entire Chester debate, which I think could make its own podcast on itself. And like,
what's the Chester debate?
Well, not necessarily the debate, but just the conversation about, the internal struggles and the things that I think Chester was trying to relate through his lyrics that led to his suicide a couple of years ago and everything else. I think that's better left.
Yeah.
If we feel the need to go in on that, we can go in on that. I think we can focus on just this album and the as cliche as it might be to say something like this, like the cultural impact of this particular record.
Absolutely.
Like this was more than any other nu metal band, more than anything else. I will say, before we get into kind of the meat and potatoes, I'll say this was the album that was like the distillation of so many different genres into a, hey, I'll give this album credit right off the bat by saying this was the distillation of those things, and like the statement from this band that was like, all of these different things don't have to be mutually exclusive. This is the album for you. You like massive metal guitars and like aggressive music, this is for you. You like rap and hip hop, and that's not really being represented the way that it would be about 5 or 6 years after this album came out. Do you like, the more electronic elements of things like that, and you like these synthesized things and whatever else? This is for you. Like, this was, it sounds so stupid to say in 2020, but like, this is the zeitgeist of all of these different things that we would see later in the 2000s and the 2010s. Like, this brought those things together in a way that I don't really think any other album really managed to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But let's get into the track listing. So we kick it off with Paper Cut. And you kind of just jump into this album. Like, it's kind of like you get dropped from an airplane, and it just like, there's no real like intro to it. It's just like, boom, there you go.
You've got the record scratches. You've got the massive compressed, panned, just overpowering guitars and everything else. And this is a great introduction for the general audience to what this band is going to do here. And we've spent a lot of time on this podcast talking about the intro tracks, right? Yeah. This might be the best intro track that we've talked about so far on this podcast. Like, you got a little bit of everything right off the bat.
One of the things I really like is there's kind of like a swag with how like Chester, like he kind of like sings raps. It's kind of like a Fred Durst in a way, but he's not trying to just be a blatant Fred Durst ripoff. He knows his lane, and he's just trying to be himself.
Yeah, and Chester has he's got that unique range. He's got the screaming ability. He's got like Chester Bennington, like right off the bat, if I was as objective as I can be listening to this record, he has that thing where he knows he's got something special, it feels like. Mm-hmm. Like,
he does.
He's really playing off Mike Shinoda's raps, which Mike Shinoda is like, obviously with the Fort Minor project and other things, like he was very kind of in tune with Jay-Z. He has that New York boom bap, like right on the beat. It's all about that kind of thing. He's got that rapping thing down from the very first verse. He's just playing off a beat and kind of making his way through, and it's almost Eminem-ish in the way that he plays around with the beat, and he's really kind of working his lyrics in between that and everything else. But Chester, he pokes in at the right times. He has that musical sensibility that you don't hear from many other features and things like that you would hear on a normal hip hop track and whatever. Like, there is a meshing there right off the bat where Paper Cut just immediately throws you in and is like, you're going to hear a little bit of everything. You hear the record scratches. You've got these massive guitars. You've got this rapper who is more than capable of doing more than just what he's doing on this track. You've got the quote-unquote clean vocalist who is going to really push you and is going to use more aggressive styles. He's using more aggressive styles of music while also being, a clean vocalist. He's doing the whole thing.
Yeah. I would say that, yeah. At 2:20, it took like a little bit of a pop turn there, and it kind of, in the way, reminds me of Stick Stickly by Attack Attack, in that like sort of, you know what I'm talking about though?
I do.
Not to that extreme, like Attack Attack, but, and I know that Attack Attack aren't the first band to do that, and neither is Linkin Park for that matter, but I just thought, yeah, that's a clear like influence there. Like you definitely took some notes off of that, which I guess you could say that's like a smart move on Attack Attack's part, to just take that from Linkin Park, who are incredible songwriters and know how to structure a song very well.
Yeah. They've just got that, they've got that perfect good cop, bad cop. And I think the thing that makes it kind of work is that the good cop, bad cop vocalist theory when you look at metalcore albums from the past 15 years, right? It's always about the good cop is the guy that has the angelic voice that soars over everything, and the bad cop is just the screamer. And here, the good cop, bad cop is more like there's the guy that's rapping that can also sing and can do the harmonies and stuff like that. And then the good cop is the guy that kind of soars, but he also has that little bit of an edge. Like, Paper Cut really displays what you're going to get from this band for the next 20 years. This is, as an introduction to this band, I don't think they could have picked a better song besides, obviously, they didn't write them until the second album, the third album, and things like that. But this is a great introduction to just like, we're doing the rap rock thing, we're doing the new metal thing. You're going to get different sounds with all of these massive guitars and everything else. But here we are. Here's Linkin Park. It's Paper Cut.
And I would say there is a massive difference between this, I would say, like Linkin Park versus a lot of those like new metal contemporaries at the time. And maybe I'm wrong here, but like for the most part, the singer was the only singer in the band. I mean, and they had like a different wide range of like ranges that they would do, sometimes rap singing or just singing in general. But I think the unique thing about Linkin Park is they have a designated person, like you rap, you scream, and you have like the melodies and like sing and everything like that. So I like that aspect of Linkin Park.
And they have like, from an engineering standpoint, there's also so much more of a difference than like the screamer that can sing and everything else that you see in late like metalcore, new metal bands, right? There's a clear difference in who's taking up what space in the equalization chart. You've got the rapper, you've got the singer-screamer, and the singer-screamer has like he sings and he screams in a much higher register than a lot of them. Like, the separation and the engineering of what makes this album, I think is part of the reason why Linkin Park just absolutely skyrockets from here, is the separation between the guitars, and to a certain extent the bass, which is kind of lost in a lot of these mixes. The bass just kind of blends right in with the guitars, which is kind of supposed to happen, but also acts to the detriment of the bass player.
Right.
Like, but from an engineering standpoint, this is a gold mine. Like, there is a very distinct frequency range for each one of the members, even though there's like 6 or 7 members in the band. It's very easy to just, when it's time for Joe Hahn, who does a lot of the programming and the synthesizing and the DJing and everything else, like, he gets his moment to pop because he's working in his own frequency range. The rapper's vocals stay right where they're supposed to be.
We see that later with him, too.
Yeah, absolutely. It just, this band knew what they were going into their major label and overall debut and everything else. They really kind of set themselves in stone and go, here's where each band member lies, and you can boost or cut each one of us as we go along, and it really kind of adds to the glue of this album.
Yeah. And I mean, moving on to the next track, we have One Step Closer, which is one of the heavier songs on this album, I would say.
And it's got that thing right from the beginning with that guitar riff that goes. It's one of the things, man, I forget who their guitar player is. I think I used to know his name. He stays right in his lane.
Big Linkin Park fan over here.
Yeah, clearly. He stays right in his lane. He's got that little guitar riff that recurs throughout the entire track. It's big, it's bold, it's heavy. It's very metal adjacent, but it's got more of that catchiness and that beat driven kind of thing that makes this new metal.
Yeah, it's a very new metal forward song. Like, there's no ounce of pop in this song. It is very similar in the way of like Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit is. Just that heavy, in your face kind of like song you can kind of bob your head to and sing and scream to, like in live performances if you see them.
And it's that it's that like sing screamy thing that Chester Bennington does throughout both of these first albums from Linkin Park. You know, the entire chorus, everything you say to me takes me one step closer to the edge and I'm about to break.
Yeah.
Like, it's very melodramatic. It's got that, you know, it's got that emo thing. And I think that's a lot of where when the band talks about, oh, the Smiths were one of our big influences, you can see that. If there were more clean guitars and more of that 80s post-punk kind of thing, this chorus would fit right in with anything that the Smiths has written. But Chester comes in and he's got that really kind of grating, high-end, just aggressive voice while he's hitting those notes. It's that, it's got that, the emotion is there. And you could call it melodramatic, or
sure.
You can call it overdramatic or whatever else. But it's got that. But it also has that little bit of a metal edge. Like, I will say, talking about this song especially, like, this is one of the high watermarks of aggressive music in the cultural zeitgeist, new metal, whatever you want to call it. Like, this has that thing.
I mean, like, to be honest with you, like, Paper Cut, I like the song. I don't know if it's like the perfect intro and the best one that we've covered so far during this, but I think One Step Closer is the song that really makes you want to listen to the rest of the album. Like, if you were like, Paper Cut's okay, like, you listen to One Step Closer, it's like, okay, I want to hear what else. Like, I want to, especially with that new metal and like how heavy it is. And that's just my opinion.
And taking from more of the like electronica kind of thing. So a lot of electronic music, right, has that build up.
Yeah.
When you go, you've got the drums that go with like house music and things like that and bring you to the chorus and really kind of ramp things up. The way that this song cuts down to just kind of bare bones while Chester sings just like before, and then it goes right into that big, massive, aggressive, huge metalish chorus of everything you say to me and everything else. Like, it ramps up in that electronica kind of way that's where I think a lot of the electronic music influence comes in. Like, this band knows how to make that chorus just huge. They cut out at just the right time and give you that little bit of hype, and you can see the kids, you can physically see them on live versions of this track, but you can also hear it in the actual production of the album, where it's just like, yeah, this is the one that's going to get the kids jumping up and down, and the circle pits and stuff are going to go for this one.
True. It's definitely that song. Now, the next song is With You, and I mean, very Korn. Mm-hmm. Very with the opening, with all the turntables and like the guitar. Very Korn influence there, because it's like, yeah, we're still a new metal band, but we have some pop elements to it and some other things that we can provide. I think Chester's vocal performance is fantastic on this song, and it kind of like really goes well with all the heavy parts to it. It really accompanies to it, and you kind of this is kind of like the first taste of like, you see Chester's range and how like what he can do as a vocal performer.
And again, that like ramping up of that first verse, that first kind of rapping part, that's very boom bap. It's very Jay-Z. It's very, I woke up in a dream today to the cold static and put my feet on the floor. He's like right in that pocket and doing the whole thing that a rapper would do. But that entire verse just kind of ramps up to the anthem of a chorus. And this one doesn't hit as hard for me. I don't think this is one of necessarily the highlights on the album. But again, it's kind of like Paper Cut, where you really get that taste of like, man, this band can do more than just one sound at a time. And they can blend it really well.
I'll say this, like, the bridge is kind of the beginnings of like, you hear a lot of the same similar sounds on this record. And it kind of is like, yep, you're going to hear this sound a lot on this album.
Yep.
And not wrong, you hear it a bunch more times. It's kind of like the quintessential like bridge in any like Linkin Park song.
But that leads Like, that's after the first two songs. So the first two songs are kind of like introductory. We can do heavy, we can do the nu metal Stained kind of sound almost with Crawling. Yeah. And Paper Cut is that real true nu metal. We're crossing the bridges between genres, and we're doing the whole thing, and we're just trying to make all of these different sounds work. But then you get to Points of Authority, which is one of the first songs where it's like, oh, you can do two almost antithetical things and make them a cohesive track.
I will say off the bat, this was, for me, one of the weaker songs. And this was also used as like a promotional single. And I was like, this is kind of a weak song, to me at least.
So for me, it's a little bit shorter. The verses are a little bit shorter. The transitions are a little bit, they bounce back and forth a little bit, which is a little, especially in the early 2000s, the age of nu metal, it's a little bit done when this came out. But I will say that,
it was like the tail end of the nu metal craze.
Yeah. So like the flow that Mike Shinoda has back and forth here, but the anthemic kind of quality that Chester brings to this song and everything else, like, I think this is a really great distillation of what that sound could be at its top points. So I don't think Points of Authority is as much of a dip as maybe you do. It's just,
from a promotional standpoint and somebody who works in promotions, if I had to show somebody Linkin Park for the first time and they've never heard Linkin Park, this wouldn't be the song I would show them, like a single that they released.
Yeah.
At least from this record.
I kind of get that but from like an artistic standpoint, as an artistic statement, like, I do think that this band kind of at its best. The melodrama that Chester's singing about, the actual flow and the way that the words are fitting together with the rapped verses and everything else, and kind of those those almost interludes, I guess, that you get from Mike with the forfeit the game before somebody else takes you out of the frame and puts your name to shame, cover up your face, you can't run the race, the pace is too fast, it just won't last. That's a great...
That's a good line right there. That's a great
couple of bars.
I was about to say, like, it's very similar vocal pattern to a lot of the contemporaries back in that day. One that came directly to my mind was Jonathan Davis from Korn. I was like, oh, this sounds like Korn wouldn't have written a song like this, but just the way that the delivery was like presented.
Well, this song actually weirdly brings thoughts to my mind of not early, but like at the actual peak, or maybe the slope leading up to his peak of Kanye West. It's got that, it has that flow, it has that energy kind of thing that a lot of people look for and a lot of people are attracted to when it comes to hip hop. Like, this kind of paved the way for the neon Shutter Shades era, Kanye being a massive thing. I would argue that there are a couple of people that would not have necessarily listened to hip hop in general that knew kind of the flow and the feeling that they were getting from Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park, that then kind of heard things from Kanye or that mid-career Jay-Z and things like that, where it's like, oh, okay, like, I get the musicality of this style of music. I don't think this is necessarily a hit. I think I kind of agree with you where, as a single, is this the one that you want to put out? Maybe not.
Yeah,
but it has it has that thing where if you look at it, especially in the year 2020, you look back and you listen to this kind of thing, like, okay, I can see where this was opening some doors for people and was really that kind of gateway.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I mean, I think of a lot of, when I see singles, I generally think of like a music industry standpoint, because I work in promotions, and like, I'm like, would that actually fit as a promotion? Would that fit as something I would be able to, would I show this to people and that's going to be like the first impression of a band? And you also think from the standpoint of a song engineer and also a writer. So we have two different opinions here.
Yeah. It's got its merits on both sides of that. Trying to put myself in your shoes, yeah, I completely get where you're coming from, but it's also like,
and I get where you're coming from too.
It's got that distillation of all these different sounds that really kind of works, especially in that time. Is this the greatest thing to put out as a single? I don't necessarily agree with that, but you can see what they're going for here, and I think on the whole it works. There's downsides and upsides to that particular song, but I think they do kind of hit the mark that I assume they were trying to go for with that song.
For sure. And I mean, now we can transition to Crawling, which this is the second single from this record. And this is also won a Grammy for Best Hard Rock Performance in 2002.
2 years after this album came out. That's insane.
That is insane. Just give me 1 second. What is up?
Recording?
Yeah. How'd it go?
Really well. That's cool.
That is true. Yeah.
Questions about big.
Oh, man.
How many people were there like, fuck if I know, I haven't been there in months. Like,
all right.
Getting a fancy new.
Who did?
I also am an idiot and I saw the veggie roll for a snack and I ended up getting mac and cheese.
Yeah.
But I also make mac and cheese. If you want, I don't care.
Okay. We'll figure that out in a little bit.
How much longer do you go here?
Probably like in an hour. Okay.
Let me grab my laptop.
Yeah, I'll let you grab it.
No worries on my end, bro.
What?
It sounds like maybe Justine and I are in very similar positions work-wise.
Why would you say that?
So I got an offer to work in this new downtown store in downtown Nashville, but they're kind of screwing me over between like full-time versus part-time and things like that. So
She had an interview today.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
3, 2, 1.
All right. Yeah, it won a Grammy 2 years after the fact that this came out, which I don't get the Grammys sometimes and how they determine when to have a song nominated or not, especially when it's not even new.
Yeah, it's...
Like, we've seen that a couple times over the years.
It does seem to be a little bit of a pot shot. I will say with this one, like, I don't think this song is a great representation of the band as a whole. It's very anthemic chorus, like melody-based musicality. It's melodic. You can see the influence that this song had with melodic hardcore and things like that. Melodic metalcore. I like the song as a whole. I like the energy it brings. I think not vocally, lyrically, it's done and it's melodramatic and it's but it's, it's still got that. It sounds like Hybrid Theory. It sounds like Linkin Park. It's very massive and compressed and just everything we've got we're going to put right in your face.
It's one of the quintessential Linkin Park songs. When I think Linkin Park, this is probably like one of the first songs I would venture to like say. I'd be like, oh yeah, Crawling, like In the End, like this would be one of those songs.
I do think that there's something to be said, at least from my perspective. So right after Hybrid Theory, Linkin Park put out like a remix album of all of these songs. It was called Reanimation. Yeah. And the dude from Stained, I think his name is Aaron, he put out like a remix version of this song that I would argue is actually better than the album version. So I think that there's a little bit of a knock on this song as a whole, considering the fact that it sounds better as a Stained song than it does as a Linkin Park song. But on the whole, like, I get why they would put this out as a single on rock radio. Like, yeah.
Fun fact: this was recorded in the key of C. And I'm sorry, I don't know music theory. That hashtag. What is that? Minor. Mm-hmm. C minor. Okay.
C sharp minor.
C sharp minor. I mean, that's kind of cool in a way. I would argue to say that this is And I mean, I haven't followed Chester Bennington's whole career, but I think it's one of the best performances of his whole career.
Yeah, he's got those sustained notes and everything else. I get the appeal. In the year 2020, listening back to it, it's kind of just like, okay, I've heard guys that can sustain notes. Cool.
But
in the actual kind of like context of the album, yeah, I can get people in 2000 listening to the song, or a Grammy nomination committee in 2002 nominating this for the best rock Grammy or best hard rock or whatever it was. Okay.
I mean, it's hard to imagine. I mean, like, you have to think of yourself as a 15-year-old. Like, 26, 25 years old, it's like, okay, dude, like, we get it. You're, like, chill out. But I think at some point, every 15-year-old or 14-year-old or 13, you feel this kind of, like, certain way. And I think...
Which I think is
the reason why it's so huge...
I think that's a huge...
It's like an anthem for those kids.
Yeah, and that's a huge contribution to this album is like, yeah, as a melodramatic, like, teenager, that's just like, oh, I'm so hurt. I just
like your girlfriend broke up with you.
I just went through my first breakup and everything. Like, yeah, I feel the anger. I feel the distrust and everything else. Like, yeah, okay. Like, there is a time and a place for that. As an adult in 2020, you can kind of just roll your eyes, but that wasn't the demographic that this album and that Warner Brothers was marketing this towards. So they
didn't
get a
have
little
it
bit
towards
of a pass.
us. Like, yeah, I give it a pass. Is it something I would go out of my way to listen to now? No. Like, I don't listen to melodramatic music like that anymore, but I think you hear real pain in Chester's voice, and not just in the lyrics, but just the way that he is singing it, screaming his feelings. Like, that kind of, I think we've all been there, where we have been in a place where, like, things just suck.
Yeah.
But do you have anything else to add with this track?
Nah, Crawling kind of stands on its own. It is a standout. I like the song. It does kind of have its own merits. I would agree. It's a little bit of a highlight. In the year 2020, I'm not sure I identify with it or that I have a lot to say that's in defense of the song. But as the song in the year 2000, as it was presented and everything else, yeah, it's, I get why it was what it was.
Yeah, and I mean, if I had to put together a greatest hits album,
it would be on there.
It would be on there. Like, that is a no doubt about it. Moving on to Runaway, which also has very little rapping on it. I didn't mention this earlier, but Crawling had like the least amount of rapping on this record. And Mike Soroka was not a prominent feature on that song.
But he had, and I will say it's one of the positive. I'll say it's one of the positive parts of these first two albums. And he got really kind of reined in on later Linkin Park albums. But I think one of the strong points of both this album that we're talking about and the follow-up Meteora, there were parts where it was very apparent that, like, the verse should be rappers. The verse should have these notes and everything else from Mike Shinoda. I think that is one of the stronger points of Crawling, is that when Mike pops up in that song in Crawling, without a sense of confidence, I'm convinced that there's just too much pressure to take. It's just like, it's Jimmy's. It's sprinkles on top of the ice cream. It's not the reason you're there. You're not looking for a cup full of these little sugar-coated sprinkles or whatever, but you just put a little bit on top and, it enhances it as a whole when there's just a little bit. I will say that is one of the great parts about that song is this band knows when to just sprinkle in, like, yeah, we've got a rapper and he's a really competent rapper and we're just going to put him on top here.
In like a weird sort of way, I wrote this in a note like about like another song, but in the way that Mike Shinoda, like the way that he pops up is very reminiscent to Public Enemy and how like Chuck D kind of does like the main rapping and then it's Flavor Flav comes in and just kind of hypes it up. Except Mike Shinoda doesn't really, it's not a hype man type of situation. It's like, yeah, I'm depressed. Yeah, I'm depressed.
And I'll say this now for the record, one of my absolute favorite rappers of all time is Mike Shinoda. There's a lot of faults with a lot of the things that he's been featured on, a lot of the some of the solo projects that he's done and stuff haven't really resonated all that much with me.
Yeah.
But when he is on, I think he's one of the few, especially in the past 20 years, he is one of the rappers that has such a musical ear. And this might be a hot take, I think Mike Shinoda does what Eminem wishes he could do.
Ooh, that's a hot take right there.
So Eminem has undeniable hits throughout the past 20, 25 years, right?
Absolutely.
He's got, I don't think there's any real question about, words per minute or anything else, or the actual technical skill of rapping. Like, the actual technicalities of things, I think Eminem probably wears that crown.
Yeah. I'm
not saying Mike Shinoda has that kind of words per minute skill or anything else, but he has a musicality that I think a lot of rappers struggle with. And this album is a perfect example of that, where he knows exactly where it's his time to shine and when it's time to just sit back and maybe you've got a bar or two here, or maybe you use what limited range you have to sing a little bit and do the thing. Like, I'm not saying Mike Shinoda
does a great job. He does a great job of he doesn't need to hog the spotlight. Him and Chester kind of like play, like bounce off each other. And yeah, sometimes, and we'll see that coming up, like we see Shinoda being the focal point in the song, but then other times it is like Chester Bennington, that's his lane. He's the performer. And then like he kind of pops in here and there, just as like Chester does on like Shinoda songs.
And when Mike shows up, he shows that competency, but it's a very reserved kind of skill, which is why I respect him so much. It's musicality. Yeah. It's where do I actually fit in, rather than I'm the rapper. I've got the swag. I've got the whole thing. Like, he never,
right. Like,
even in his own solo project, it's always about like what actually best fits the song. And sometimes that's a hit or miss, which, welcome to the world of music. But for the most part, he's very kind of analytical about when he pops in. And I love that about him.
And like we've heard a lot of songs where case in point, there's like this, there was a song that came out by, I'm blanking on the band, but like this song literally had a mix between screaming, like pop vocals, and also rapping in it. I forget the name of the song, but very famous, like horribly bad. And they kind of just jam-packed it in and tried to make it fit. This doesn't feel like it to me. It kind of is like, yeah, like maybe I'll pop in, maybe not. Like, it's okay. Like, Chester, you take the lead on it. Like, I'll do what I can.
Yeah, which is very indicative of Runaway, which is not one of my highlights of Hybrid Theory, but he has that point, especially in the pre-chorus. Like, now I find myself in question, and then you hear Mike just kind of pop in for a second. They point the finger at me again.
Yeah.
He's accenting. He's adding the sprinkles on top of the soft serve ice cream, as opposed to, there's not the battle of, well, who's the real front man here? It's just here's my piece. And he plays guitar in the band. He's done keys. He does some of the sampling and things like that. Like, I think that's one of the smartest bands, and one of the reasons why this band has had the success that they have had. For better or for worse, they've had some flops and stuff like that. But I do think that nobody can really critique how smart they've been with, this person has these strong points and we're going to accent those when we feel it's right to accent those.
Yeah. And I mean, this has a very, has the classic industrial, like, nu metal breakdown, like all the other contemporaries did. And it's very classic Linkin Park song structure with some extra groove in it.
Yeah.
Which, not mad at. Next we got, unless you wanted to add anything else to Runaway.
Nah.
We have By Myself.
So By Myself, it's one of those songs where kind of the understated genius of this band kind of comes through, where most metal and metalcore and aggressive kind of bands would use this particular guitar riff as like a breakdown. This guitar riff here is the recurring theme for the entire song. It's heavy as shit.
It's in my notes I wrote down it sounds like Limp Bizkit but with more layers and like instrumentation to it. Like this band kind of took it to a new level that Limp Bizkit didn't even like dream about.
And that's where it's one of the big faults for Linkin Park as a whole is that they distill these different influences to a point where it's one of the reasons why people get so harsh when it comes to this band is that, they keep watering down all these different influences and everything else. And that makes it kind of hard sometimes for people to identify them or to, really kind of talk about this band objectively. But I think this is where that exact thing actually kind of works in their favor, where this is a breakdown riff that dun 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 dun, like that. Yeah. That's the hook as far as the guitars are concerned, and that actually really kind of works well.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's I don't know. To me, it sounds like a Limp Bizkit song, but it's not quite a Limp Bizkit song. It's a Limp Bizkit song done in a Linkin Park way.
Yeah, it's very nu metal. It's very just, we're going to write a metal riff or like an aggressive riff and then just build off of that and add all these different instrumentations and everything else. But I think while this is absolutely, I think, one of the lower points on this album, I don't really love this song as a whole. I really respect what they're going for as a whole here with that riff, with the way that the rap versus rock kind of dichotomy comes in. Like, this is the extreme on this album, I think, towards what they're going for, and it doesn't quite hit the mark, but I do kind of respect just the gall that it takes to make this kind of song and be like, because even in 2000, this was a rock radio, a pop with giant air quotes around it, a pop band, and they did this. Yeah, like that takes some confidence in what you're actually trying to do to make something like this.
I would agree with that. And coming up now, we have, I would say, probably one of the highlights, undefinitively like highlights of this whole band's career.
I think for the public,
in the end,
for the public and for people that think about music critically, I will say I think that this song has absolutely earned its place in the kind of pantheon of music.
Absolutely.
This is the best case scenario for nu metal. I'll go as far as saying that.
Yeah, and I mean, this, even at the time, by music critics, it was, a lot of people were complimenting the piano riff and just Mike Sirota's vocal prominence on this song. I think it's one of the highlights. Chester Bennington hated this song. He didn't even want this song on the album. And like in an interview, it's like, funny what I know. Like, I guess I got to leave it up to the people who actually know stuff. He said something, I'm paraphrasing there, but that's something along the lines of what he said.
And I don't blame him for it with the kind of melodrama and everything else. Lyrically, that piano riff is iconic, but also very simplistic. The guitars they're just big sustained power chords. Like, if you wrote in like plain spoken terms the composition of this song and then wrote the lyrics next to it, I can absolutely see from an artist standpoint how you'd sit back and just be like, oh man, like this is just Like, this is sophomoric. This is just, like, I think it's easy, and I think it's one of the reasons why Linkin Park has been written off by so many people, is that so many of their hit songs are very much in this formula of just like, yeah, you got big guitars, you got a rapper, you got a guy that can scream and also can sing competently and stuff like that. Like, it's really easy to write off this song, but I think as an actual composition, when you take it out of the context of the album, take it out of the context of what this song has become in the past 20 years, like, look at this song on its merits, the way that it was recorded and performed and everything else. I think there is a reason, and I would, again, I'll go into the hot take chamber too. I think this is one of the reasons why this song is regarded the way that it is. You can make the argument that it's a little bit overproduced, that it's a little bit overworked and everything else, but man, you're going to talk about a band that's trying to bridge the gap between rap and aggressive rock, and you come out with this, like, you got a hit on your hands. It's also a
ballad, kind of.
Yeah, it's got that little slower tempo.
It's kind of a ballad, in a sort of way, and I mean, back in the 80s with the hair metal bands, when they were all doing their thing, and like hair metal was a huge deal back then, the ballads were the number one hit song, and a lot of people wrote off those bands for good reason, but like the ballads were always the number one hit, and this is kind of history tends to repeat itself, especially in music, and we see it here. This is a nu metal ballad.
And it's the best possible.
And it has the right accolades.
Go ahead.
It has the accolades to back it up. I mean, VH1 ranked it 84th on the 100 greatest songs of the 2000. It was number 2 by Loudwire on the list of top 21st century hard rock songs. It's a nu metal classic, and I think if you had to show somebody nu metal, this is going to be on the list of like the songs that you would show them.
And let's go in on it, because I think there's a lot of weight that comes with talking about In the End by Linkin Park. It was one of the biggest songs of the decade, obviously. It's one of the biggest songs from this band and everything else. Like, there's a lot of weight that comes with this song, but let's talk about this song as an actual composition, as a song itself. If you're going to talk about nu metal, like, competency-wise, from a hip-hop standpoint, Mike Shinoda is sitting there in the fucking pocket. He is this is a great example of, like, you give a rapper a pop song and you give him his set of bars that he has to hit, and he is right in there, and he's playing a little bit with the actual 4/4 time and everything else. Like, he's really got that feel for it. The chorus is massive and anthemic, and the guitars come in and it's massive, and this is one of the better, I'll go as far as saying, from the past 40 years of metal music, this is one of the better, more concise, more catchy choruses that you're ever going to hear from aggressive, quote-unquote, music. Like,
at this point, this is a classic rock song. And to me, this is like as perfect as a single as it could be. I mean, it's very digestible. Like a single, the thing about singles, and like people hate how simple music is, but the reason why singles are popular the way that they are is because they don't make you think. This one, it kind of just tells you all it is. It's heavy, but it's also like a ballad. It's easy to digest as like the music goes, and also we keep mentioning that nu metal at this point was like the top dog. It was like the number one thing as far as music goes, but also this was the beginning of rap. And well, not the beginning of rap. Rap was a while, like, around for a little bit, but Jay-Z, we had Southern Rap, we had Nelly, Bow Wow. We had all these massive performers, like who were rap stars, like rock stars. And it kind of encapsulates everything that was popular at that time.
And I think that's the thing, is that one of the biggest knocks that you can make on Linkin Park is that they took all of these different genres, they tried to convalesce them and make them into one sound, and a lot of times that came at the detriment at what influences they were trying to take or whatever.
Yeah.
This song is the best case scenario for all of that. The rapping, it's tight, but it's not robotic. It's got feel, it's got emotion in it. Mike Shinoda is just going and, he's presenting feelings. Chester is as melodramatic as this album can get, and as melodramatic as this song in particular can get. Like, he is displaying that melodrama in a way that I don't think is, especially in the year 2020, that stuff can get kind of mired in sarcasm and pulling your punches and being like, well, I want to talk about this thing, but I don't want to sound like a sad boy or whatever. And I think if you remove 20 years worth of analysis and everything else, when you look at it in the end, it's like, it's a pop song. It's perfectly structured as a pop song. It's catchy. It's got the things that are going to get in your head like a pop song does. It's got that little bit of aggression. It's got that emotion. It's got that thing that a hardcore kid or somebody like me, when I first heard this song, that was going to later down the line become somebody that was interested in hardcore. It's got that emotion and that genuine emotion and that emotive delivery of both the rapping and the rocking. Like, it's got something that those kind of kids can latch onto. It's got the catchiness. Like, as far as modern singles go, you can't top this. Like,
I would also in terms of rock music back in 2000 and like the late 90s and early 2000s, a lot of people weren't talking about their feelings like this. In a kind of a way, this is like groundbreaking.
Yeah, it's got again, you can peg it with the term melodramatic. And I get that when you're talking about Linkin Park, especially early Linkin Park, like, it's easy to write it off. Like, I tried so hard and got so far, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. It's platitudes. It's sophomoric. It's okay. Like, you're in your feelings and you don't know how to communicate that. So fuck it or whatever. But like,
if someone were to write it today, I think we would all view it as, wow, this is really corny. But I think in terms of in the context, and of course, like, it's easy to sit back now, but context matters, especially when an album comes out. And not a lot of people were doing this back then. Not a lot of people were talking and had these kind of lyrics back in that day. I mean, you had the Kurt Cobains, you had like all those grunge bands, but they weren't just like, this is exactly how I'm feeling. They were like more...
And those bands were...
You had to think about it.
Those bands were mired in lyricism. They were all trying to hold it back a little bit and trying to make it sound less dramatic than they actually felt and everything else. And it's easy to write off a song like this or a band like this and go, yeah, this is melodrama. This is platitudes and everything else. But I think that those kind of bands that you're talking about, like Nirvana and stuff, paved the way for a band like Linkin Park to come through in 2000 and be like, I tried so hard and got so far. Like, it's, those bands paved the way for a band like this to just go, we're going to wear our heart on our sleeve. And 20 years later, does that necessarily hold up as a whole? Maybe not. It sounds a little bit too just on the nose, I guess. But man, like, there's a reason why this song became this song. Like, in the end is what it is because, man, they hit that point at the exact right time.
And I mean, like, it's it's weird how it's become kind of a meme.
Yeah.
Like, you can be like, "Ah, man, I got so far." And then, like, another person will be like, "But in the end, nothing really matters." Like, it's kind of funny in that sort of way.
Which is why the next song, A Place for My Head, I think in the year 2020 actually hits so much harder than it did when this album came out.
I loved how Mike and Chester just play off of each other. Like in the last couple songs we heard, for example, in the end, kind of Mike takes the lead on it, and even like the Crawling and Runaway, you have sort of Chester taking the field for it. This is kind of like the best of both worlds and shows like the dynamics of both of them and how they both like can contribute to a song.
And that's exactly right. I think the dynamics of this song is what really kind of brings this, in the end, is the hit of this album, right? But I think A Place for My Head is where they kind of take the hit and then they really distill it down and they make, I think, A Place for My Head is the definitive statement of this album. Like, you've got Mike taking over the verses and doing his thing, and he's sitting directly right in the pocket. He is doing what rappers aspire to. He plays around with the beat, and he really kind of just flows right through it. He's got that thing.
Yeah.
And he does a great job in the pre-chorus of building it up. And then you get Chester coming in on the choruses with the whole, I want to be in another place. I hate when you say you don't understand. And then a quick stab from Mike there with, you'll see it's not meant to be. Like this.
Yeah, and like throughout the track, you see Mike who's kind of even keel. And then Chester has his moments of explosion. Like at the beginning, like Chester's kind of like even keeled as well, but then has those explosive moments, and Mike brings it back to that kind of calmness level of even keeledness.
Yeah, this is the best case scenario of that good cop, bad cop, that duality of the rapper versus the singer in the band. They bring it to a whole other level on this song. I think this is the best. I'll argue this is the best kind of distillation of, this is the Linkin Park sound. This is the thing that they've been going for.
Yeah, and Chester sounded like he was going to war towards the end. Damn.
Yeah, that.
Who is living rent-free in your head, Chester?
Who knows? But they like the aggression, but also the flow and also the musicality of all of it. I think this might be my...
I think it's an underrated song on this record.
I think it is an underrated song, and I'll go so far as saying this might be the best song in the whole album. A Place for My Head
non-single or just overall?
Overall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I think A Place for My Head is the song of just, this is the Linkin Park sound. This is the...
I would have picked this song for a single over Points of Authority.
I'll give you that.
I think this is a stronger song. Then moving on, we got Forgotten, and kind of falls into the nu metal trope with the mixes, and also has mixes of like 90s rock, of like Stone Temple Pilots, Jane's Addiction. Like you hear those influences mixed with the nu metal, and like bouncy riffs and quietness. And like the verses and like the bouncy riffs in the chorus.
Yeah, Forgotten is the song where it's like, yeah, this is nu metal. This is competing with Limp Bizkit and all those other bands of that era. Like, it's aggressive, but it's got a little bit of the rap kind of thing. It's got the aggression. It's Forgotten is one of my least favorite songs on the album. It's just
Would you say that you have forgotten it?
I haven't forgotten it. I knew this song right off the top, but it is, man.
I had to go there.
It's one of those songs where it's just kind of like, yeah, I get what you're going for, and I get why this is on the album, especially in the context of the rest of the album. But man,
to me, it has a little bit more of like that 90s rock feel to it, kind of like that post-grunge. Not so, I mean, it has like the new metal in it, but it also has that Jane's Addiction, Stone Temple Pilots, and I mean, they were friends, they played shows together, and they were influenced by those bands, so it shows. No surprise with that one.
Exactly. It's just, I've said it a couple of times in some of these reviews, like, that one's just there.
So
I get it.
You would say it's filler?
Not as much filler as the next song on the track list, but it is, yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's...
You think Cure for the Itch is like a filler track?
I think Cure for the Itch is more filler than Forgotten, but Forgotten is like the thing. This is a major label band, and it's a major label band where, you know, the powers that be were looking at it and going, well, you gotta compete with Limp Bizkit, you gotta compete with Korn, you have to compete with Slipknot, you gotta, you know.
That is true. I mean, there was reported a lot of times in the studio that they were fighting with their producer, with their engineer, really trying to push them towards different things, and the label wasn't happy a lot of the time about this record. I mean, it's tough, it's challenging, but we mentioned it earlier, but Cure for the Itch, to me, this just shows how talented Joe Hahn is, but at the same time, it kind of leaves me thinking, like, where was all of this talented DJing throughout the other tracks in, like, the album?
Yeah, and I think this is a song that shows kind of, you know, from a marketing standpoint, they didn't know what to do with the DJ in the band. He's had more than a few moments throughout the past couple of tracks that we've talked about. He has made a lot of these tracks instrumentally, but they kind of threw him a bone, and it doesn't quite land the way that other things could have, as opposed to, you know, anybody that knows this album knows that the band was going by Hybrid Theory and Zero before this album came out. They had a bunch of demos, they had a bunch of other things that were going on before Hybrid Theory by Linkin Park came out and kind of was the thing that it was.
Right.
I still feel, and I felt this way even before I met you, Dan. Like, this was a song where it was like, man, that song My December, that ended up being kind of a B-side from this album, but was a demo before that by when the band was going by Hybrid Theory and Zero and all that. Like, track 11 would have been the place to put My December, and it would have served a very similar, I think, standpoint in the album of, here's the band getting really experimental, really going for the electronic element, really going for the moody kind of element that you've seen throughout the past 10 tracks.
Yeah.
You know, it's
always a trend with these major label albums that before the last track, there's always this sort of like instrumental, like interlude. Like we saw it last week with Machine Gun Kelly. We've seen it a couple other times with major label records. It's just, it's a good transition if the next song was actually like a banger, but it's kind of forgettable to me, at least.
Yeah, this is a song where it's like, I get what you're trying to go for, and especially being a major label debut and everything else, I get why they put Cure for the Itch there. It does seem like kind of throwing a bone to the DJ in the band, but it doesn't quite hit the mark the way that one of the other songs from previous EPs and stuff like that would have hit the mark. Like after Forgotten, if you had really slowed things down and if you had gone for My December, which is almost entirely sample based and DJ based and things like that, it's still slow. It still has that little ramp up before Pushing Me Away comes in at track number 12. Like, I think that would have been a much smarter, a much smarter placement in the album track list than the rest of these things. Like Cure for the Itch, it's there. Okay. It's
what, Pushing Me Away?
Yeah. Pushing Me Away is fine. It's this Cure for the Itch track where it's like, if you had put in My December here after Forgotten and before Pushing Me Away, I think you would have ended this album on a much higher mark than you did with the way that the track listing currently sits.
I would agree with that. And I mean, maybe in theory, the idea behind this was like, oh, maybe this is like a preview for what's to come on like the next album, or like what's further down the road. Like, we have this very talented DJ and he can do all these cool things. Maybe it's like that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't add anything. It doesn't subtract anything. It kind of leaves more to be desired. And for me, it's like, well, where was this in a lot of the other tracks?
Yeah.
Now, the final track of this album, because we're not doing the deluxe version.
Yeah.
Pushing Me Away. To me, it's kind of a boring rock song and kind of just doesn't really add anything for me.
And I'm largely on the same place. Like I said, if it was My December that came before this, I would kind of get the very Chester-centric with a lot of samples, a lot of DJing kind of in the background. My December is a very electronic song.
Yeah.
That would have been a nice ramp up into this song. I'm not sure it would have done a lot for Pushing Me Away as a whole, but it would have, just added to kind of the momentum before this song came in. And with the way that Cure for the Itch is, it's like, yeah, okay. It showed up. We did the thing. We threw the bone to the DJ, and now here this is how we're going to close things out.
Yeah, and it kind of is like the classic Linkin Park formula.
Yeah.
Chester has very calm voice, which eventually becomes louder and more aggressive. It appears like in the verse, it appears to have minimal instrumentals, like instruments, but you can tell there's more there than you can actually hear, and there's more layering to it. And it's very drastic, and towards the end, like rapping in it. I mean, it's just a very straightforward Linkin Park song.
Yeah.
Like classically structured.
It's not quite at that level that so much of the rest of the album lands at. It has kind of a little bit of a filler song before it, and then this happens, and it's like, okay, it does the thing that I think it was supposed to do, but I think with a song that was a little bit more substantive before it, it would have changed what Pushing Me Away actually ends up being, and instead, it's another album that we've talked about where those last two songs really just kind of like, we've fallen apart a little bit at the last couple songs. That's
kind of what it feels like to me. Yeah, it's there to be like the 12 song mark.
Yeah, especially with an album that for the most part before this and the song before it, there were songs that were really kind of making a definitive mark. Like, I don't think it's deniable by anybody. You get why this album has the accolades that it does and why it still has the love that it does. But I think these last two songs are the part where it just kind of, who is the quarterback from the Giants that went on the run and then just fucking fell apart?
Daniel Jones.
Yeah, Daniel Jones. He was running. It's
kind of like that play.
He was 80 yards down the line, and then he just tripped over his own fucking feet. And it's like, yeah, you had the thing and you overthought it, and here we are.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that analogy, and that's pretty much all I have on Pushing Me Away.
Yeah, it's
leaves more to be desired. It's there.
It's fine. It's a decent Linkin Park song, but it's, these last two songs of this album really just kind of, they had so much hype and so many good positive qualities that were coming towards them, and then those last two songs, just any momentum that they had is just dropped off.
Right. And I mean, we have to think of it in the context of a major label. I mean, if we were to take both of those songs off, it would be 32 minutes instead of like almost the 38 minutes. So like, I don't know if it was so much as like Linkin Park, but maybe the label also pressuring them to have a certain amount and meet the criteria. I don't know.
Yeah, but I think that brings us to the end of the album. So, does it hold up in the year 2020?
All right. For me personally, this album doesn't hold up. Like, I wouldn't re-explore this album. If this was on a rock radio station, I'd listen to, like, In the End, or, like, I'd listen to Crawling, but I wouldn't re-listen to it. However, in the context of music as a whole, and heavy music and hardcore and metal, this does hold up. I mean, it is the best-selling, not the best-selling album of the 20th century, the 21st century, but it's the best debut album of the 21st century. That says a lot right there. This has influenced a lot of the bands that we already listened to. It's a band and an album that we look back at and it's like, wow, I loved this record when I was like 13 years old. And like what Chester Bennington was writing really resonated with what I was going through when I was 13, as melodramatic as that is. So in the context of that, yeah, it does hold up, to put it very simply. And I think the hits are, this is a classic record at this point. I think you can put it next to Nevermind. You can put it next to Night at the Opera by Queen. You can put it next to the first Black Sabbath record. Any Metallica record, you can put it up to those and be like, yeah, that's a classic record.
So I'm very much on the same page as you, where this record has its hits, it has its merits, where it's like, yes, this is the thing that opened not only myself, but a lot of bands clearly up to what they do. Does it hold up as a whole? I don't think it does. I think it's so much, and we talked about it throughout this entire review. There's so much of this where you sit back and you go, well, in the year 2000, well, in the current music landscape where it debuted and everything else, it got away with this. It made changes here. It did this. Like, it's so much of that goes on where I have to sit back and go, if this album came out here today, no, I think everybody would largely write this off. It has its moment. It has its thing, and there's a reason why this album and this band is so influential with so many people. But does it actually hold up? I don't think it really does. I think lyrically it falls short a lot. It just falls into the melodrama and the platitudes and the I'm an angry white boy. Let me get my aggression out because I have this platform. I think it falls into a lot of that, and I think a lot of the musical aspects of it were already kind of done before. I think this band might have done them better.
Yeah,
but
that's fair.
But as a whole, a lot of the sounds that they're coming up with here were already done years before this and were done maybe a little bit better, and this band was just kind of drawing on them. So Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory, does it hold up? I think for both of us the answer is no, with the caveat being there is an absolute reason why this is still a zeitgeist album, why this is still highly regarded, why 20 years later we're talking about it. Like, it has those moments where you can sit back and be like, oh, this is Linkin Park is the reason why this band did this. Linkin Park is the reason why I got into this and whatever. Like, they opened those doors and they did that thing that distilled so many different genres into one thing. But if this album were to come out, a week from now, I'd probably just roll my eyes and be like, yeah, this is a thing.
It's nothing that we would listen to, but again, new music is not marketed towards us. That's
how we're getting old, Dan.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty telling when music publications back in the year 2000 gave it high reviews, as well as I've looked at a couple reviews that were recently done and people were still like, oh wow, Hybrid Theory is still a good record. Now, I didn't use any of their opinions. This is all based on my opinion, but it's pretty telling when review sites are still giving it a high remarks, as well as fans. Because there's many times when fans love it, but the critics hate it, or vice versa.
Well, I think that brings up the point here. So I think you and I have both decided for ourselves, does it hold up? Not really. It has merits, it has the thing, but does it hold up as a whole? Probably not. But that does bring up the point, like, how influential is this album?
I mean, we wouldn't have a lot of metalcore. We wouldn't have, I mean, that metalcore scene in the early 2010s and late 2000s or aughts. Like, that was one of the hugest scenes. I mean, you had, in a way, a lot of that kind of scene was reminiscent to like the nu metal phase or like the nu metal scene, and how there was like an overconsumption of all those bands, and then it kind of broke apart, and now like a lot of those bands are not even on the Billboard 100 or whatever.
Yeah, Linkin Park kind of paved the way. Linkin Park paved the way in the mid to late aughts or whatever. They paved the trail for rock music to continue to be a viable thing until really kind of the downfall in the late 2000s, early 2010s.
Yeah.
But they opened that door, and I think that, again, as a whole, does it hold up? Nah, not really. But
I mean,
it has its merits.
I think it doesn't hold up for me personally because, like, I wouldn't listen to this. Like, I wouldn't go out of my way to listen to this. But I think it does hold up in the context of rock music and the influence it has. Just to clarify my positioning there.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page.
All right. Tell us what you think. Give us your thoughts, opinions, viewpoints, what you liked, what you don't like, and whether you disagree with us on either our Twitter or Instagram, both at PackYouRunPod.
At PackYouRunPod.
Now, we're going to wrap this up, but before we do that, we're going to give you some recommendations.
Absolutely. I'll let you go first.
All right. So my recommendation, and I wanted to give this last time, but we didn't end up doing recommendations. I was out in Western Mass this past couple weeks, and there was this thrift store that I always wanted to go to, and I found out about it online. I was like, ooh, I gotta go here. This place looks cool. It's called Mass Vintage, and it's the same stuff that's in the store is the same stuff you can find online on their website. It's massvintage.com, and if you're looking for like 90s, like Red Sox shirts, Patriots shirts, or anything like vintage sports related, that is the site that you want to go on, my guy. They have a fantastic selection, and like it's very well curated. It's like the thing that kills me about a lot of vintage stores and a lot of different thrift stores is they don't really have a guys section. This one is mostly a guys section, and it's all sports related. So check them out. I picked up a shirt that was like, it was a Bart Simpson with like him fighting a ram, and it was like Smash the Rams on it. It's really cool. It was one of the shirts that they made. So yeah, check them out.
And my recommendation this week is actually another
nu metal band.
No, it's another it's another YouTube channel. I've really gotten back into watching Philip DeFranco, especially lately. I kind of fell off the Philly D train a while ago, but as far as news is concerned, like, I really do feel like this is a guy that's he blatantly gives his opinion, and then he kind of cuts it off between the opinion pieces and the actual meat and potatoes of whatever story he's talking about. Like, I really like watching him for 15, 20 minutes a day and just getting an idea of here's the facts of something, here's this guy's opinion, and he gives you all the sources where he gets everything like to a fault. The description of his videos is very much a little bit of overkill, but you do really feel like you're getting something out of this. So yeah, Philip DeFranco.
True.
I've kind of gotten back into watching his videos and stuff like that, and I've been really enjoying it. It's been kind of cool to watch him the way that I used to watch him in like 2012, 2014. Like, he feels like he used to feel.
Yeah, for sure. He is a great source right there. I have one more recommendation since I don't know when we're going to put out a new episode next week, but next week is election day, and please make sure to go out and vote. We're not going to tell you who to vote for, but just go out and vote. Let your voice be heard. It's your duty as an American to do it.
By the time this comes out, it'll be too late to actually make a mail-in ballot a legitimate thing. So go out, do your civic duty, just vote.
Either early voting or the election day, just go out and vote.
Do the thing. You're given the right as an American, and I know in a lot of places that right has been a little bit hindered, but fight for your right to just go out and make your voice heard in what little way it is, and do the thing, dude. Just don't sit there and complain about the way that things are if you're not pushing for the agenda that you want to push for politically. Like, make your voice heard. Do the thing.
Absolutely. And with that, this wraps up another episode of the Pack Your Run podcast.
It's another episode. Stoked we got to get it done. This time, kind of on time. We're going to try and Dan and I are going to have conversations in the background to figure out how to not make these lapses a regular thing. We're both busy guys. We're trying to make it happen. So bear with us while we figure out new work deals and everything else.
Yes. But like and follow us on Pack Your Run Pod on Instagram and Twitter. Rate us on your podcast provider. And we'll talk to you next week.
We will talk to you next week. All right, my guy. It's been a good one.
Take it easy. Yeah, for sure. Take it easy, guys.
Bye-bye.